That's your password is ESURK. All right, so it'll automatically come up in Windows 10, and it's loading this icon already. I got it automatically loading that icon. So it's starting the application you need. I will shut down the application. So it comes up with a bunch of stars. It's not communicating yet. So whenever it looks like that, where you get black up here in your intake discharge pressure, it's not communicating. So it takes a little bit. Now it's communicating. The booster pump's not running, nothing's running. The operator, here you can see his intake pressure at 0. Scale goes up to 60, negative 15. Discharge pressure, gland pressure, and numbers are right there. Here's your gland valve. It'll go green when the gland valve's open. That actually runs when you're in auto mode, which we are. It runs with the clutch. So when it's clutched in, that guy will go green. That guy comes on too. When it's clutched in, this pump goes green. You see your pump RPMs here. You see your engine RPMs here. The engine's off. You can, this again, it's not a touch screen. You got to do it with the mouse, but you can actually start and stop the engine here. The stop is not working yet. As of my last day here on site, Jason's going to wire it in series with the e-stop. He knows what to do there. There's a relay in my control cabinet for the stop. Start does in fact work. Clutch in and clutch out. Now this has nothing to do, this is just for the engine. So that'll work whether you're in auto or manual mode. And watch, I can put it in hand. Oh, it's not a touch screen. So I can click here and put it in hand mode. Now when it'll tell you it's in hand mode. Now I can turn on the clutch. This is for maintenance purposes. I can turn on the clutch and turn off the clutch, turn on the service water valve, or off, while you're in maintenance mode and hand mode. So we'll put it back in auto, just pretty much leave it in auto. Because what will happen is, we'll describe that while we're up at the pump a little bit more. You can also see the engine, some engine information, your oil pressure, coolant temperature, operating hours, battery volts. That's all live right now. We just shut down a while ago. The coolant temperature was around 180 or something. But that's it's all information coming from the engine. Down here you've got navigation. You got your main screen that we're on. You got trends. We go to trends, and you can see a couple trends from when we've been running today. This is historic trends. So you got your time and your date up here. You can actually use these scroll menus, so you can scroll through, go to end, go to home, go to move left, move right. So you can scroll through, provided the laptop's on, you got trend data there. So you can see that the intake pressure is green. This is live data. Right now the gland pressure is saying it's 4. I don't know why, but anyhow, the green line is your intake pressure. Discharge pressure is red, gland pressure is blue, and then your pump RPM divided by 10 is purple. So they're all in the same negative 15 to positive 200 line. So you can play with that and have fun with that, but that's your trends. So it's recording everything, historic trends. So it'll keep all that data for you if you ever need to see. So you can see we've been down for about an hour now. So we go back to the main screen. So that's pretty much it from here. Provided the key is on, in the on position on the engine, I could literally start it right here. I'd click on that and start it. Again, the stop does not work, but I could click on it and start it right here. Once it's started, provided it's in auto mode, which it is, you'll see your engine go up to 700 RPM, sit there at idle. Your pump is 3.27 of that, so you get the pump RPM here. So you'll see that. You'll see your engine oil pressure and all that. As you start feeding it material, the dredge or the excavator operator, it'll clutch in, and we'll take a look at that. It'll clutch in, and you'll see this go green. You'll see the gland go green up here, but it'll clutch in before it gets to the set point pressure. This set point pressure, I can click on it and change it to whatever I want. I'm not going to, but I can make it 14, but we found out that 12 is pretty good. So we want our intake pressure at the pump, at the booster pump, our intake pressure, I got it set at 12. So what'll happen is as it starts coming up, that engine will start speeding up as it goes above 12. So it controls, it's what it called a proportional integral derivative loop. So it controls the engine speed to keep around 12 psi intake. So as you're pumping it's gonna speed up, and that engine will speed up with you. It does real sweet, and it'll slow down with you. Once you shut down, you're not feeding it anymore. That intake pressure will drop below a set point we have out on the booster pump, which I'll show you. There's 2 set points on the booster pump. One set point for when it gets above, we got it at 8 right now. It gets above 8 psi when you're pumping, it'll clutch in automatically when you're in auto mode. We have another set point for it to clutch out. You want that clutch out set point lower, obviously, than the clutch in. So as you're slowing down and you're not sending them as much material or water, and that intake pressure drops below, by now the engine's at 700 RPM and idle, and your intake just keeps on lower and lower. Once it gets below 3, it'll clutch out automatically. And once it clutches out, it'll keep it clutched out in case the intake starts varying a little bit for some reason. It'll keep it clutched out for 5 minutes. I got a timer in there. So it'll ignore the intake pressure once it clutches out for 5 minutes. Gives you time to get your scow out and everything. But of course you could take it out of auto, and if you need to clutch it in for any reason. But after 5 minutes, that intake pressure is settled down to 0, and it's not going to clutch back in again until you get to 8 when you start up again. All right, let's go over to the booster pump. Oh, one other thing I want to show you here. In case this is ever shut down, and it doesn't, when you start the laptop, it starts up on its own. But there's another method of starting it in case you shut it down and you don't want to restart the laptop. You double click on this. It's Factory Talk View ME. Now the only problem with starting it this way is it's going to make you go through a couple of steps. You got to load the applications. Only one application on here comes right up. Curtin Maritime. Say OK. Say yes to that and yes to that. The only reason you need to do this is if you by mistake shut the application down and wanted to restart it. You can start it with the icon. So now it's loading the application as it does when you boot the laptop up. It won't ask you these questions when you boot the laptop up. All right, so we got to wait till the application's in. Now once everything's turned bold, all you got to do is hit run application, nothing else. So that's important just in case it gets shut down. Again, when it comes up, it's waiting to find the communication. It's going out through the wireless. And you'll see that all the numbers and everything comes up. So now we're good. There is one other thing. When you're in manual mode, of course we're in auto right now, but if you're in hand, not only can you start and stop these, or open and close, I should say, the clutch and the gland. You also have manual speed increase and decrease. So you can start the engine and manually control its speed here. You know, in the hand mode, you can click on increase and it'll increase. And of course, you watch your pump and engine RPMs go up. And you click and hold down decrease and it'll go down. So you can manually control its speed from here. So we're here at the actual booster pump. The key is in stop position. We have no power to our cabinet here, to our control cabinet. Take a look at what's inside the control cabinet here. All right, power is on. So we've got this is a communicator to the engine. It gets all the parameters from the engine, the speed, the pressures, temperature, things like that. Communicates it to the PLC. This is the actual PLC, Allen Bradley PLC. There's a couple of side modules it's got on there. This is your radio, just like the one you just saw in the excavator. So you got a radio at each end. So the wireless and your antenna is right up there in the sun. And then there's a couple of relays in here that actually allow it to speed up, slow down when they energize. They interface through dry contacts to the engine. You got your start and your stop, and then you have relays for your clutch in and clutch out, and then this relay we added for the service water pressure, or it's for the service water gland pressure. So it's all automatic. So those are the things that are inside the control cabinet. You can turn this off if you ever need to also by hitting this red button down here. It's a circuit breaker if you want to have the key on, and then you got to turn it on. So make sure the circuit breaker, that's your main end. This should not be popped out. If you see white behind it, it's popped out, circuit breaker tripped. All right. on the front of the cabinet is the Allen Bradley panel view. So here's your graphical screen that you have online here. Let me see if I can focus that in there. Alright, there we go. You see we have intake pressure, gland pressure, discharge pressure. Same features you saw up in the excavator. You see that it's in auto, and our set point is 12. Just like up in the cab, we can change this set point here too by touching it, putting in 12.0 or just 12.0 because the decimal place is implied. So we'll get out of that because 12 seems to run pretty good. Again, we can start and stop the engine from here just like we could at the we got to start and stop for the engine. We got a hand auto. This is a touch screen. Got a hand auto. You got the clutch engage, disengage. These are all push buttons. And again, if you're in manual mode, which you're in, or hand mode, call it, which we're in auto now. But if you're in hand, we can do speed up and speed down. These are push buttons. You hold them, they'll speed up, speed down. And you see your pump RPM here. You see your operating hours, just like you saw on the at the laptop. Speed references how much the automation is giving it to go. And just like the other one, we've got some, you got a configure screen here. So now here you got a couple things that you don't have at the laptop. You have 3 transmitters here. You have intake pressure transmitter, discharge, and gland pressure transmitter. It's stamped on each transmitter what their range is. Like for example, the discharge is 0 to 200. So you want to put the range of the transmitter. So if you ever replace the transmitter, for example, with a 0 to 150 because you have it stock, you just simply touch this and change it to 150 instead of 200. So that way I don't have to come out here and reprogram the PLC. So each one of the transmitters you put in the range that it is right there. These are important. This right here, the top line, it says automation allow. So in other words, even though it's in automatic over here, it's really not going to control anything until the engine speed is at least 690. So that's an entry. I put it at 690. The clutch comes in along with the service water pressure. That's not going to come in until you're at 8. That's where that set point is right there, as I said. And then it's going to clutch out. You got to be below 750 RPM and below 3 PSI, and it'll clutch out. And again, once it clutches out, it'll stay clutched out for 5 minutes. So that's, again, I got some trends on here if you ever want to look at them. You can see trend, intake pressure, discharge pressure, and gland pressure. These are not historical trends, these are 2-hour trends. So if you want to look at what happened the last 2 hours, you can look at it there. So this screen will go to sleep after 60 minutes. So I'll just say Allen Bradley bouncing across there. So if you need to see anything, just touch it, and it's a touch screen. Now it's important when you start this engine up, even if you start it, either you can start it by the key switch, turning it to the right, as you always did, or you can start it by this touch screen or the laptop. This screen will go blank and it'll restart because the battery draws down so much. Fortunately, the PLC and the code keeps running, which is inside the cabinet, but this must take more energy than the PLC does. The screen goes blank, and that's typical. I rarely have ever started an engine with the PLC, and that's mainly why. I normally tell them start the engine and then turn on the PLC, because when you start an engine, it really pulls down on that voltage, and it could possibly drop out the PLC. It'll reboot, but it takes about a minute and a half, and then your screen will come back up. Of course, the laptop won't see anything either. He'll get all stars out there because it's rebooting. So, and of course, if I turn the engine off, I'll turn this off, and we've lost power here. See, nothing, lost power. So turn it on, and we'll see it'll go through a boot up cycle. See, it's going through a boot up cycle. And so is the PLC and the radios and everything else, just like your laptop, it's going through. So the laptop right now lost communication out there at the excavator. It'll gather communication again once everything's up. So it's going through a boot up process. So you got to give that time for that. So that's the way it works. Your intake and discharge pressure transmitters that we're reading are back here, and your gland pressure transmitter. And here's your clutch. The way the code does this is it gives a 5-second signal when it tells it to clutch in to one of the solenoids. For 5 seconds, it takes less than that to happen. But the air pressure is built up, and it'll push that clutch in. And when it clutches out for 5 seconds, it'll energize the other solenoid. Unlike service water, your gland pressure valve, that actually is just a single valve. So my code keeps that coil on the whole time the clutch is on. The engine is idle. It's climbing up. You have no gland pressure because you're not clutched in. The clutch and the gland coming together. Remember, it's red. If you're in auto, and of course, once it starts coming up and this intake pressure hits 8, it'll clutch in, and the service water, or known as the gland pressure, will come up. So don't panic, you don't have gland pressure. It don't matter because your pump's not running. The pump's not engaged. So your intake's coming up, 2.1. Pump speed says 0 RPM. Alright, so now he's up to 3.6 intake. When he gets to, provided we're in auto, which we are, when he gets to 8, everything will take off. As soon as we hit 8, it'll engage, and then he's got to keep speeding up, because if it goes below 3, it'll disengage in 30 seconds. You see the service water drop down a little bit, but he's speeding it up. He sees it's engaged. As long as we don't go below 3 for 30 seconds, we'll be alright. And then he's good. So once it gets above 12, it'll start controlling the speed of the engine. The engine's still at idle. Our set point is 12 psi intake. As soon as that engages, the operator should start bringing it up some. Alright, so there you go. The intake's coming up. The engine's automatically coming up. You see your pump RPM in the center here. It'll come up to maintain that 12 intake set point. Always want to have your gland pressure above your discharge. Operator's got to be watching that. You can see everything from the screen on the engine's about 1200, 1300 RPM. You can see that on his screen.